We offer a rented in 29-day guarantee. So basically the way this works is pretty simple. We list your property. The day it hits the market, if we don't have you an approved applicant with a signed lease, a security deposit, within 29 days, you don't pay the first month's management fee. And so you ask, how do we do this? So it's pretty simple. Number one is you want to market the property correctly. And so our things, we focus on good marketing photos, make sure the property's move-in ready, make sure we have a really good description about the property, location, what's close by, what schools are close, what shopping centers are close, that kind of stuff. That's important. But the biggest thing is pricing. And so we want to make sure we price that property right. And there's a lot of ways to do this. So if I was going to list my own property, I would probably look on Zillow and look for, I think it's Rent Zestimate. And those are actually fairly pretty good. It's actually one of the numbers we use sometimes. I'm also going to look at the most recent rented properties in the area. And so we use systems like Rent Range, there's Rentometer, and there's a few others. You can use the MLS, there's a few other options. But what you want to do is you want to get a really good idea of what that property should be listed for. Now that's, in my opinion, the pricing the property correctly the day it hits the market is the most important. If you have good, decent marketing photos, a decent description, and your price is way high, your price is way low, you're not going to get good results. And so it's all about pricing that property correctly. And then it's watching those numbers and seeing how many leads you get in the first 24, 48 hours. And you'll know if it's priced right. And so what we always tell owners, hey, we will price it. We give them a recommendation. We'll say it's $3,000 a month. And we've come up with that number not by a guess, but we've actually looked at a lot of numbers, looked at a lot of properties, compared that property, that 3-bed, 2.5 bath, or whatever it is, to the other ones, and come up with, hey, this is a number I'm very confident if we put on the market today at this, we'll get showings, we'll have viewings, we'll have applications, and I can lease this in 29 days. Some owners will push back and be like, hey, I want to try 32. Okay, that's fine. Let's try 32. And what we want to do is we want to look at it in the first couple of days. And if we're not getting any inquiries, then we know we're priced too high. And so if you listen to our pricing and we say, hey, we recommend 3,000 and we have it rented in 29 days, that's great news, right? If it's not rented in 29 days, that's when we will waive that first month's management fee. So the key is pricing. If we put it up at say 32 and we're not getting any showings or any inquiries within the first weekend or the first couple of days, we want to make sure we reduce that right away. If you look at Zillow is a really good one that keeps all the history. You can see what a property is priced for and how long it's been on the market. And the longer it's on the market, it becomes stale. And I've been in properties multiple times that have been on the market for 30, 60 days, especially this last winter when we had a hard time renting a lot of stuff. And the tenants would ask us, or the prospective tenants would be like, what's wrong with this property? Why is nobody renting it? And a lot of times, maybe it's not the great condition, the best location, but usually the price doesn't meet those. And so pricing is so important because if you're a prospective tenant, you're not going to overpay. You know what your budget is. You know what a 3-bed, 2-bath should be in Capitol Hill or what it should be over in Georgetown. They know their numbers. And so we want to make sure we price it accordingly. So pricing is the most important. Number 2 is systems to get that property on the market. And so when we list our property, the system we use, it pushes out to Zillow, HotPads, Trulia, Renters.com, rent, all these different, 50, 60 different websites. And I don't have a list in front of me, but there's like Zumper, there's Find a Rental, whatever it is, there's 100 of them. And the key is to make sure you get on all of those. I remember years ago when this shift kind of happened, I was buying a house and you used to have to call a real estate agent who would tell you what's available, right? Well, Zillow came along and the MLS and all these things came along where I now, as a prospective buyer or a prospective tenant, as soon as a property hits the market, I get an email or I get a text. And so if I've set up my parameters, if I'm looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath in Capitol Hill that's under 3,500, as soon as one's listed, I'm getting an email. And so those are the people that are reaching out to us right away, clicking on that, scheduling a showing through Zillow, where we can show them the property tomorrow. If they do that and say you've listed above their range, well, they're not getting notified on that. And then that property kind of sits. And so we want to make sure we're in that range to where as soon as we post it, people that have these systems set up, they're getting notifications and they're reaching out to us right away. Our system is set up to where once they get that, they can click that, they can schedule a showing tomorrow. They've got to give us a little bit of information, how many people are going to live in the house, update a photo ID. That way we know who we're meeting for the showing. but I could post a property today and show somebody the property tomorrow that I've actually never talked to. And I have information about it. I'll show up the property and have 3, 4, 5 showings, hopefully an application. So having a showing system that is very quick, can get people there when they're ready, meeting people where they are is very important. So the next thing is actually, once you go to that showing, is you want to make sure the house and the condition of that property meets what they saw online in photos. Uh, our big thing in the past was move-in ready, which means it was vacant, it was painted, it was clean, it was ready to go. We've shifted this a little bit to where we will now show occupied units again, because we are looking at the market and people are kind of looking to move 30, 45 days out, and we want to make sure we appease and give those guys an opportunity as well. But if it's occupied, you still want to make sure it's in good condition, it's clean, the current occupants are taking care of it, there's no large, massive holes in the wall, that kind of stuff. If there is a little bit of maintenance, that's fine. We want to make sure we know what we're walking into, so we can explain to the prospective tenants that, hey, when these guys move out, we're going to replace this carpet, or this fridge is pretty old, we're going to replace this fridge, or whatever those items are. We want to make sure we know what it is, and so when they walk in, they have an idea of what the property is going to look like when it's ready to be moved in. And so once you show that property, the price needs to now meet that condition in the neighborhood. So if they come in, they look at it, everything looks good. Right then, we're going to send them a link on how to apply. And so we want to get that process started as quick as possible. They saw it, they like it. We want them, if they're interested, to apply as quick as possible. We require them to pay the application fee. They can do all this online. Pay the application fee, submit 2 forms of ID, submit any pay information, background check, all that kind of stuff. And if it's the right property, it's priced right, and there's prospective tenants that are looking at it, we'll typically get an application that day, or the next couple of showings. But we also have a system there that helps that process move along simple. And once we have a completed application, we can have that application processed usually within 2 days. If it's really good information, everything's correct, we can usually within 1 business day have an approval for that prospective tenant and say, hey, you're approved, what's your move-in date? And now we're just kind of finalizing move-in dates and the lease and that kind of stuff. And so that's how quickly you can go from property on the market, advertised, showings, applications, application approved, security deposit paid, lease signed within a couple of days. We had one recently in the Capitol Hill area that we listed, and our first showing was 2 days after it was on the market. Owner occupied still, and so we kind of pushed off to a day that was good for them. And so I think 2 days after it was on the market, we had a few people sign up for showing. We went and showed the property to 2 different prospective tenants, and both applied, both were approved, and we just accepted the first one that had fully applied and went in that order. And so that property is on the market less than 3 days, approved, and move-in ready to happen. And so that's the key to being how we can make our 29-day rented guarantee promise. Is if you follow our process, you price it the way we say we should price it, we can make that guarantee. If you want to push it a little bit, we have no problem with saying, hey, let's test the market, because there's definitely times where the market's doing this and we're not quite, maybe we're seeing it, but maybe it's worth seeing, hey, is it worth 3,300? But the thing is, you want to be very quick on adjusting it if the inquiries are not happening. If you're not getting any leads, then we want to drop it to where we think it should be. Because think about that. If you can rent it in 29 days or 60 days at $3,000 a month's loss of rent of $3,000, what are you looking at, $100 a day? And so every day it's sitting on the market costs you $100. So if we can lease it for $3,000 and you thought maybe it should be 32, but it's a month faster, we saved you a lot of money. And that's our goal. We want to get it rented as quick as possible for as much as possible. But again, these are kind of the best ways to get the property on the market, get it leased as quick as possible, and how we do our 29 rent day guarantee. The key, though, is our systems, processes. Right away, as soon as something happens, this happens next. And we have these systems set up, and all big property management companies have these systems set up. And as a DIY landlord, it's kind of tough because now you're looking at, like, how do I approve this applicant? How do I run a background check? We have all that. We can do that quickly. But that's the best way to get something rented in under 30 days is price it right, have good marketing photos, show it as soon as somebody's ready to see it, process the application as quick as possible, approve them as quick as possible, collect the security deposit, sign the lease, and the property is occupied.